How are you? My name's Ayo, and I have a business called Ask Ayo. I'm a school counselor, and I provide counseling and prevention education services. And I work with youth, and my primary focus when I work with youth is to prevent them from the things that I know are serious: drugs, sexual assault, violence prevention. So I focus on the things, the uncomfortable topics. That's kind of my thing. I talk to students about those serious topics in families and have family engagement, teacher engagement about all these very serious topics that most people want to skim over. But the reason why I'm making this video is to document and to share and discuss a serious topic, which is child sexual abuse. I am a survivor of child sexual abuse, and recently I want to document and talk to people. I'm very emotional. Talk to people about my journey with going forward and identifying my abuser and filing criminal charges against my abuser. It is a relative, my cousin, and it locked me for so many years. It stole parts of my life, and I want to be honest. I want other victims to know that it's never too late to stand up for your truth, to talk about what happened to you, to identify your abusers, and you have nothing to be ashamed or embarrassed of. And I think I lived a lot of my life being in that space where I felt that I was not worthy of love, that I felt that I didn't deserve certain things because this happened to me. And I no longer want to live like that. And I don't want my students to do it as well. Um, I wrote a children's book. Now it's backwards because that's what the camera is, but it's called My Body Is Mine. And the reason why I wrote it is I wrote the book that I wish someone had read to me when I was 5. I want children to know what grooming looks like, what it looks like when an adult steps, or teenager, someone that has power over them, oversteps their boundaries. As I said, I'm a school counselor, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a big cousin, I'm a lot of things to a lot of people, but the first thing I have to do is honor myself. And when the law, I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm originally from Queens, New York. And recently, a law changed through a lot of survivors working hard and advocating for themselves. They allowed survivors to come forward, even if they're past the age. They grandfathered me in. So basically, when I first came out and told my family what happened, and let people know that it happened to me between the ages of 5 and 10, um, there was no recourse for me. I looked into the age, and I had already, it was 22 at the time, and I had already, I was well past that age. I was 35 when I first told someone what happened to me. My mother. It started with my mother, and it freed me. I lived in a world where, like I said, I did not feel worthy of love. And I could give it to everyone. I could be supportive and nurturing to everyone, but I did not have that energy for myself. And I want to document this journey with me going to New York, me having to stand up for myself, me confronting this person. I know this is the last thing that they expected, but I'm going to do it, whatever I could possibly do. And I want to share that with other people. I can't ask my students to be brave, to come forward and talk about things that are serious, if I'm unwilling to do it either, unwilling to do it myself. And this is very difficult. I started the process. I found a lawyer that I want to use that worked for years within SVU. She has private practice now, and I was on the phone, so she told me what to do, and I started the ball rolling with NYPD. And yesterday I was on the phone hold for a long time, and just having to discuss with her and in detail talk about my abuse, and it has been very difficult. It wasn't something that I was expecting. I mean, I knew I had to say it, but I think when you have to repeat it more than once, you realize just how serious and how hard it is to deal with and what you have to go through. So I wanted to share that with people. So like I said, I'm from Queens, New York. So that's where I was victimized. It was in Queens when we lived there. And so with this law changing, it allows me to speak up, and it allows me to go after my abuser, my cousin Bernard. And so the reason why I was even over there, my dad was NYPD police officer, and my mother is an RN. And so when they would work, sometimes they might have, both of them might have 11 to 7, and my dad might have 12 to 8. So if they had those type of hours and there was no one home to stay with me, then I would go over my great grandmother's house those weeks that they had shifts that where I was alone, where I would have had to have been alone at night. So some of those weeks when they had those shifts, I would go over my great grandmother's house. So between the ages of 5 and 10, I was victimized by my cousin, sexually assaulted, touched, fondled, oral sex, and things like that. And so it's very difficult to admit that and to say that out loud. But I want other people to know that it's okay to say it, because I felt ashamed for many years. I felt, and the irony is that you feel ashamed for what an adult did to you when you weren't in control of yourself. I was 5 years old when it started, and I didn't even understand. I went to a school, St. Clair's in Queens, excellent school. And I remember sitting next to this girl. I'm not going to say her name, but she was so pretty. And I remember her sitting next to her in class, and she had this beautiful smile, and she kind of leaned back laughing at something that happened. And I remember looking at her thinking, she's not dirty like me. That I didn't even know. I looked at her and she looked happy. And I remember thinking, no one's touching her. She's not dirty like you are. And I will never forget that feeling, that of looking around the classroom at other girls and boys thinking that they're not like you. They're not unclean. They're not dirty like you are. And it's stuck in my head. And I think that's part of the reason why it led me to work with children. It's part of the reason why that I talk about the topics that I do, because I want to empower my students. And documenting this and sharing what I'm going through as far as going after my abuser is something that I know is going to help other people. And if I can't do that, then what's the point of doing this? I want people to know what happened to me. It is uncomfortable. It is shameful at times. It does make me recoil to talk about that. But if I don't, then we're going to keep this in secret. And when you don't talk about a topic, then you allow the predator to make the narrative, to determine what the narrative is about where it keeps our kids safe. We are not willing, because it makes us uncomfortable, talk about sexual abuse. Oh, it's not my neighborhood, not my friends, not my coaches, not the children, not the people that are not my babysitter, not my priest, not my cousin, not my husband, not my wife, not a friend of the family. They've been friends with us for years. So we tend to put ourselves in these bubbles and not realize that it can be those people. And rather than identify, it makes us feel better that, oh, the predator is that guy in a white van. And yes, the predator is sometimes the guy in a white van. But what we also know is that 30% of children, this according to the CDC, that are sexually abused know their abuser. So that means that someone is in, out of that number, right, it's an even larger percent of that number, it's a relative. So we understand that it's people that have access to our children that are doing that. My parents, in a million years, my dad would have never, he would have defended, my dad probably would be doing a bid right now, to be honest with you. If he had discovered that had happened to me as a child, and found out, with my dad being a police officer and having access to guns, I can promise you that he probably would have went to jail for the rest of his life for murdering my cousin. So it's not that I wasn't protected. I wasn't that I was in a home where people wanted to pretend it wasn't happening, or it wasn't my parents' fault at all. I was just a child, and I was hushed. by him, told that if you tell, you're going to get in trouble, your dad's going to beat you. Like, I really thought that it was something that I couldn't tell anyone. And I know that that was grooming. I understand that now. But as a child, you don't know that, and I'm not responsible for that. And I spent so many years locked up over something that someone did to me. And I don't want that to happen to other people. I want other adults to come forward, even if it's just to file the report. Even if your state doesn't have the statute where you can go after them, still file the charge anyway. I am so thankful that they passed this law in New York. It changed me. Like when I read that and read that I have a chance to out him, to put him on blast, to let people know in the family, publicly, that this man is a monster. He stole part of my childhood. He stole my identity. He stole my joy as a kid. There's like a before and after. There's a before I was abused, and there's an after, and I was never the same. And it took a lot of years of getting help from myself to understand it and to not be ashamed and embarrassed. And I hope that you do the same. So right now, I started the process as far as I filed a police report. Right now, I'm speaking with the detective, and I will say that up until I got to SVU, that it was a little hairy. Like I was not getting, it was a lot of hang-ups and runarounds, and until I got to them. But I do feel that the people that they have, or the people I spoke to in Special Victims Unit, they are understanding and kind about talking to you. I didn't feel brushed off or that they were trying to hurry. I really felt that she was listening to my story and wanted to know. So I will say thank you. I appreciate that, because victims you don't want to turn around after you get abused and you're trying to come forward and get met with more abuse, more or just being dismissed and not being listened to. So right now, I am in the process, like I said, of starting that ball rolling, of seeing what I can do, and that's part of my story. And I can't I can't write this without talking about my story. It's the reason why I came forward. It's the reason why I wrote this book. What happened to me, because I wanted people to know. And I start off, I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but I start off my book stating, letting children know that their body belongs to them. I want to do more videos about how to talk to children about that topic, and other topics that are serious with kids. Online safety, being groomed. Parents, caretakers need to understand what it looks like and what's happening. And it's okay monthly to ask your child, is there anyone in your life that makes you uncomfortable? Is there a teacher, a coach? Has anyone touched you past or present? Has anyone in the family made you feel uncomfortable? Has a bus driver or a teacher, anyone that has access, the babysitter, and let them know, rather than act like it's the guy or the girl in the white van, which is, like I said, it is. We know that we are watching our nation where people, women and children and men and boys are being kidnapped and taken for God knows what, for sex trafficking. So we know it's real. It is a stranger, but more often it's someone that has access. And so I started my book off saying, my body is mine. As you can see, I own all my parts from my head to my feet. So I wanted children to know that their body belongs to them. And no one has the right to touch you without your permission. And I put that in detail. So I'm going to do more videos about how to talk to students and how to talk to your child. But right now, I wanted to talk to the adult victims and teen victims, and any victim, anybody that's listening to this video. Whew. Gosh, it's just hard. And anybody that comes forward, even if you're thinking about it, kudos to you. And if you have come forward, that's why I said I'm a survivor. Um, when you get to that, and I feel like there's levels to this. So at first I was a victim, but when I came out and talked about it and used that to be a vehicle for me to talk to kids. So when the kids that have come forward and talked to me and told me and trusted me, I thank every one of them. And, and there's so much braver than me. I tell them all the time. The students that have come out and told me, I told them, I thank you for trusting me. And you're 11 and you're 12 and you're 14 and you had the guts to say it now. I didn't say it when I was 11, 12, when I was 14. And so kids that do it, that do tell, I'm so proud of you. And if you're an adult, don't go to your grave with that. Because what it's done is a vice around your neck. There's this, like I said, there was a before me that before I was abused and after. There's also a before I told and an after I told. And it freed me. That's what it did. When I came out and told people, told my mother what happened, it changed my life. It was an accident. My mother was talking about my cousin, and my aunt was ready to pass. And she mentioned my cousin. And when she was talking about him, I was behind her at the table. She's washing the dishes, and I'm at the table going through a magazine. And she said his name, and naturally, I made a face, like that face, like, ugh. And she happened to turn around and see me make the face. And so she was like, why'd you make that face when I said Bernard's name? And I was like, no reason. You know, I'm like, people that go through trauma and things like that are really good at deflection. Like, one of the things that's about me is that my humor is, I am a clown. Like, I know I'm talking about something serious, but I'm very silly. And I know how to redirect things and how to redirect a conversation. And so I attempted to do that with my mother, but she wasn't having it. She knows me. She made me. She birthed me. And so she took her gloves off and washing the dishes and came over to me and said, why did you make that face? And finally I had to tell her. I started crying. I couldn't, and I blurted it out. And we sat there and cried and had the deepest conversation I probably ever had. And I thank my mom for being there and believing me. And I said that to people that are going to tell, even if no one believes you, you still say it. Even if it's a revered person in the community, oh, she's this, or he's a doctor, or he runs the mega church, and what, I don't give a damn. I didn't mean to say that, but I did say it. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're an esteemed member of your family. I don't care. It's okay to tell people, because you might be preventing someone else from being abused. You might be preventing another family member from going through what you went through. So you have to have these conversations, even if they're hard. And that's what I talk about. That's what my focus is. So I'm not going to talk forever, but I am going to use this vehicle and use videos to talk to people and to get my message out there and to talk more seriously about child sexual abuse. Like I said, when you're silent, then you allow the predators to determine what is safe for our students and for our kids and for our community. And we can no longer do that. Sexual abuse is beyond race. It's beyond culture, what religion you are. There's no one culture. There's no one group that can say, oh, we don't do sexual abuse. No, everybody does it. Whether it's rich, whether it's poor, whether it's regardless of race, where you come from, where you were raised, what country you come from. There are people out here. We understand that children are being trafficked. We understand that there are adults that have a predilection for children, and if we don't discuss it, we're not being aggressive about talking about child sexual abuse, but they're being aggressive with being abusive. So we can't continue to do that. it does our children a disservice. So on that note, I'll end this video, but I thank you for listening. Ask Aya.